All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to, stream number two of the Go Big Red Nation channel here. Uh, my name is Jason. Welcome again. Uh, like I said, stream number two, episode number two, however we want to call it. Calling this one more preseason chatter. And hold on. Can everybody? All right, here we go. Is this better? I think this is a little bit better. All right. Like I said, if you guys couldn't hear me before, welcome. I'm calling this one even more preseason chatter. Just kind of going over a couple more things. Just wanting to chat, talk about some Husker football, talk about college football as a whole. And then kind of going forward. I think Monday I will do an actual deep dive into the Cincinnati game. And then my plan is like streaming schedule wise, once the season gets rolling, is for Saturday games, as long as it's a Saturday game, do kind of like a preview of the game on Fridays, chat about maybe whatever we've heard about during the week, anything like that. And then depending on if I can, I'd like to jump on sometime after the game that night to then talk about the game, go over it, have a reaction show, stuff like that. If I can't, it might be Sunday night or Monday nights. Just kind of depends on when I have the actual time to be able to get on here and do those streams. Let's say I think pretty much outside of this first game against Cincinnati, I think the only other game that's not on a Saturday will be the Minnesota game. So then that would probably be a Thursday and then Friday or Saturday night, Sunday night, or maybe the following Monday. But whenever I do my reaction show, I will notify you guys, or I'll kind of give you guys a heads up on when I do plan to do that during my preview show. Also, you can guys keep up with my on my X and account and go from there. But anyway, let's go ahead and let's jump into what we want to talk about today. I kind of want to talk about a little bit of the preseason polls. Want to go over just kind of my thoughts on the penalty that came down on Michigan over their cheating scandal. I don't know if you heard this, but I guess members of the Big Ten, like Tony Petitti and some of them, are working on a 26 to 28 team playoff kind of model. I'll give you my thoughts on that. Getting to the point, I've heard a couple of people on different podcasts kind of talk about this too, and we're kind of getting to that part of the preseason where we're getting tired of the talk, right? Where people, I think, are just getting very tired of listening to the talk, listening to the hype, and they're tired of just doing all the talking. Whenever you look at the radio shows and all the stuff like that. Something else I want to get into. Kind of want to talk about, if you're a big Husker fan, if you listen to several different podcasts or radio stations, you've probably heard of the I-80 Club with Josh Peterson and Jack Mitchell. I myself am a Patreon subscriber. I am part of the I-80 Club. I love what they're doing over there. But they've put it together just a tremendous project over the summer called the Groin Kick Chronicles. I just want to give my couple thoughts on that overall. So we'll talk about that today. And then we'll get into kind of my season overview, what I kind of expect from the 25 Husker season, the Huskers, the players, and then I will go down and kind of do my record prediction, my full season prediction. I'm going to go game by game, not in super intense into it. What I like to call these are just my quick thoughts. My quick thought on, like, literally, if you just put the season schedule up there and you just went Cincinnati, okay, what was my first quick thought of win or loss? That's kind of how I'm looking at it. I'm not diving too hard into it. Just my quick thought on whether we were going to win or lose. That's how I put that together, because I can do all like the researching and everything and deep diving into all this all I want. It's all preseason chatter stuff, though, right? I mean, we don't know. We don't know a lot of stuff that's going to happen throughout the year. We don't know a lot about every team that's going on. We don't know a lot about ours. We can think that we do, but we don't. So whenever I do like my season prediction stuff, like I said, I like to just kind of, what's my initial just reaction to whenever I see those games. Um, let's see here. What else? Yeah, and that's pretty much just about it. That's kind of what we'll go over. Um, so let's start off with some of the preseason polls. Obviously, Nebraska's not ranked, um, which is fine. Obviously, I don't think we've necessarily earned that with our previous plays. But just some things that I kind of thought was kind of interesting. So let's go over the coaches poll. The coaches poll had 9 SEC teams ranked in their top 25, while the Big Ten had 6. And the AP poll, the SEC had 10 teams, while in the AP poll, Big Ten had the same 6. And of course, there's several of the other teams in there, right? And I think, I kind of touched on this a little bit in my first video. If you guys haven't seen that, you guys can go back. It was just literally the first episode where I just jumped on and just started kind of giving my kind of rants and rambles on a bunch of different stuff. And I kind of talked about this. And I've heard guys like Robbie Lula from Heard at Sports kind of talk about stuff like this. And I've seen a few others now, too, even some people from different conferences that kind of are more concentrated on different conferences also talk about this. And in fact, I think I came across a video on Facebook. Danny Cannell even kind of brought this up too with, I guess, but he was talking more of like the FP rankings, but why he thought that the FP rankings were persuaded thanks to these preseason polls. So these preseason polls, these teams, and whenever I'm talking about these seasons, I'm kind of concentrated right now on the SEC. They'll sit here and constantly add to the narrative of, well, look, and then because you already see a lot of the SEC pundits and fans and whoever else already starting this narrative of, look at our schedule. Why would we go to 9? Look at our 8. And our 8-game conference schedule, this one team sees 7 ranked teams out of our 8 conference games. Okay, true. Preseasonally, by the time you get to those games, they may or may not be ranked, but what helps you stay ranked throughout the season is the fact that you get so many teams ranked preseasonly that whenever you face each other early in the season, you have ranked matchups, whether they are deserving of that ranking or not. And again, I'm not going to be like, I'm not a big like raw kind of guy. Like I do want the conference, obviously, look, I want the Big Ten to be as strong as possible because that helps whoever your favorite team would be inside that conference, right? So for myself and other fans that are probably watching this stream or watching this video, if you go back and watch it later on, whenever it's up on demand, it's Nebraska, right? So if Nebraska does get back to being top, it's going to make it really hard to keep like really jumping up the rankings. Whenever teams like Minnesota, and look, this season schedules might not be the best, but any other given year, an Illinois, a Minnesota, some of those like more middle tier, maybe UCLA could be one this year. Middle tier Big Ten teams that do not get the benefit of a doubt that they are going to end up being good. So then whenever, maybe skill wise, talent wise, and sometimes we see this not in just non-conference games, but during bowl season where these same teams will beat these ranked SEC teams. But then again, they can go with the narrative of, well, they didn't make the playoffs, so they didn't really care. They weren't really into it. It's just a bowl game. This is your guys' big game, but not our big, So they get all these built-in excuses. So, I just think it starts to become a problem whenever we are looking for playoff spots because these preseason rankings that have there's no substance really to them, right? Nobody knows if Missouri's actually that good or South Carolina or Florida or A&M. nobody knows exactly how good they're going to be for this season. But whenever they just get benefit of the doubt because it's a SEC, so we're going to rank them, they get overrated throughout the year, which then allows them to stay overrated throughout the year. Because let's say a rank, let's say what's a top tier? Texas. Okay, Texas is one of the pretty clearly top of the SEC teams this year. Texas beating ranked Florida looks a lot better than Texas just beating an unranked Florida, right? Florida could still be okay, but with the ranking in front of it, it gives them that strength of schedule, and it's a bloated strength of schedule. Meanwhile, the teams in the Big Ten were constantly fighting an uphill battle. And the reason why I'm not talking about the ACC or the Big 12 right now is because I don't follow those conferences as hard. I think clearly if you just look at programs that are in both of those conferences, the overall programs are much stronger in both the Big Ten and the SEC. I think what we are starting to see, though, at least with the Big 12, some of these programs are starting to get better, especially during the NIL and transfer portal era. You're seeing teams like Texas Tech they finally, they do have this huge backing from their alum and boosters that they're going to start now becoming a lot more of a fighter with the big dogs and become a bigger program. And then you got Iowa State that right now is playing very well. K-State's playing pretty good. Kansas is kind of still teetering on trying to really get back. I know they had that one pretty good year with Lance Leipold there. So you got them. You never know what Deion's going to finally maybe turn around with Colorado. BYU has become a big player as well, thanks to NIL and stuff like that. Utah's always a tough team. Arizona State came out of nowhere last year. So now all of a sudden, they might not be, filled with a bunch of blue bloods or top 5 programs in the country right now. But again, thanks to the era that we're in, they're now at least fighters in the college football world that could develop into being maybe not perennial powerhouses, but, there's somebody that you don't want to take lightly. So the Big 12 could end up being a little bit more of a major player whenever it comes to the Power 4 programs. The ACC, again, they're pretty top heavy, but their bottom is so bad. They're just not great. You could probably say that a little bit with the Big Ten too, whenever we go to like the real bottom, but history wise, Purdue's not, they've had some good runs. Maryland's probably one that hasn't really had a whole lot of good runs. Rutgers had the one good run, and they're still kind of a tough team. Rutgers to me kind of feels like they're kind of replacing what Northwestern has been under like Pat Fitzgerald. Now Northwestern's kind of fallen off. It's going to be hard for them to really be fighters in this NIL era of college football. And it sucks because they were kind of always like that little engine that could for the Big Ten, that was one program whenever Nebraska came in to the Big Ten, and I think I can speak for a lot of Husker fans. We did not think that they were going, that was going to be the Iowa State for us for a while, that we just ran all over them, for a long time or whatever. Like there was going to be that program that just would never be a challenge to us. And Rude Awakening, no, they were a challenge almost every year. I mean, we had some of our best games against Northwestern. Now, not that they have a bad coach or anything. I just think it's going to be a struggle to get the top tier players that they, will need to be a fighter. I'm not saying that every game they're just going to get blown out or anything like that. I'm just talking about being a contender for, Big Ten championships and getting into the playoff and stuff like that. So it's just kind of one of those off-season topics, preseason topics that, kind of, I think personally on the national stage gets pushed to the side, maybe a little too often. because I think it does. Yes, do preseason rankings really fully have um, any effect maybe on the rankings at the end of the year? I think they do a little bit. I think it prevents, like, does it prevent anybody? Let's say, let's just use Nebraska as an example, right? Nebraska's unranked, but there's a lot of people that think that they could be really good this year and could jump into top 25 and get up there and maybe flirt with the playoffs a little bit this year. Does us not being preseasonally ranked affect what could happen by November on the bigger scale? No. But like I said, whenever it comes down, let's say it's down to us or Alabama, well, Alabama's going to have the stronger strength of schedule because no matter what, whenever SEC teams start beating up on each other, they don't drop a ton in the rankings because they're playing all preseason ranked teams. And Nebraska is not getting that because some of the teams that are good in the Big Ten that are middle ground aren't getting that same kind of love. They're not getting put in there either. So it becomes, yeah, they might be just as good. Let's just use Minnesota. Minnesota might just be as good this year as a South Carolina. Especially could have some of the same records and stuff like that. Same amount of players that could be pro athletes, anything like that. Let's just kind of use those comparisons. I'm not using these two teams in real time. Like, I'm not talking about this year's Minnesota and this year's South Carolina. I'm just saying in any given year, let's say they're pretty evenly matched up, but anybody that's playing South Carolina, since they will probably be preseasonally ranked, will get extra boost in whether they won or lost to that South Carolina team. It helps them overall in the eyes of, the media, the voters, the fans, everything. Well, meanwhile, anybody that's going to go play Minnesota that same year, playing against the same level of competition that would be if you were playing South Carolina, are not going to get that same little boost whenever they look at their resume, whether they lose or beat Minnesota. So, especially, for in the playoff era, that can come down to make a big deal at some point. I know last year it didn't really come into play because South Carolina and Alabama and Ole Miss, they all kind of lost and then fell out. But it's coming. One of these years, it will come down to these resumes from teams from a different conference, and and then you're just kind of at the mercy of on perception, right? So anyway, that is that on there. I don't want to talk about that too much and kind of beat a dead horse on, something that I think a lot of people can agree with. This here recently, Michigan University had the penalty come down on their sign stealing investigation. Just my kind of overall thoughts on that real quick is, whenever I initially saw what it was, I was kind of thinking, man, that's really not, that's not a whole lot. And I've seen a lot of other people kind of compare it to like Ohio State whenever Jim Tressel and all those players got in trouble for basically like selling, pants or these the things that they're given by the university or getting free tattoos, all these kind of little small things. People are kind of talking about other stuff, but at the same time, I also can think of a time where, NCAA has come down on a team for whatever violations that they made. Any of the players or coaches that are involved have moved on from the program, and then they still give the players that had nothing to do with that some kind of ban, some kind of, scholarship limit, vacating of wins and stuff like that. And people's reactions to those were, well, why are you punishing a team, coaches and players that were not around during that time? So that part I can kind of agree with why, or, how the NCAA didn't do something like that. Cause that's fine. I do not hate that. The only thing that I think we should have seen if, because I mean, they basically did come out and say, yes, they did all this stuff and it's bad enough to the point where basically Connor Stallions and Jim Harbaugh are basically banned from college football. So if it was bad enough for that, why wouldn't they vacate wins from that season? Or an asterisk, or have to vacate the title, something, right? And I'm not saying that, you know, that's the only reason why they won was due to the sign stealing. Because I mean, look, they still had talent. I mean, they had NFL players up and down that roster, and like the three deep. Okay, um, so I'm not saying that that's the only thing, but at the same time, like I mean, it was clearly an advantage, especially if they're playing a team that also is stacked with players. You know, um, so I'm kind of surprised at least some kind of vacation of wins or of that title that year or whatever didn't happen. It's kind of curious, or it's kind of shocked a little bit by that. A little surprised, maybe shocked's a little strong of a word, but a little surprised. Um, the Big Ten is, I guess, working on a model for a 26 or a 2018 playoff. Here's something, I'll just be really quick on this one. Don't like it. I think that's too many teams. Somebody kind of brought up, sometimes in the negotiation, you kind of come back with like this, oh, okay, well, you don't want to do how my model for the 16 team playoff is. Well, how about I'll propose a 26 or 28 team playoff and do that. Maybe that's all it is. Outside of like it kind of getting reported on that one time, I haven't heard much noise outside of that. So that could be what it is. Could be just something that kind of got leaked out there, floated out there by the Big Ten or by Tony Petitti, just to kind of, hey, here, don't agree on something. Here's this that I'm working on, then kind of thing. But yeah, like I'm all for a big playoff, but I think 16 teams is kind of the limit for college football. Yeah, and let's stick to the 16. All righty. I want to talk about that, the Growing Kid Chronicles. Let's talk about that. Oh God, this messed it up big time. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know how many people are out there listening to the I-80 Club with Josh Peterson, Jack Mitchell, but all summer long, for the most part, they've released this series called the Growing Kid Chronicles, where they ranked all 70 of the losses that have happened since the I think it was the Holiday Bowl. Yeah, I think it was the Holiday Bowl where we lost to USC, which would have been the first official game after Bo Pelini's firing. Where Barney Cotton coached that game. And I've seen some discussion of people thinking, oh, they're just being negative. They're celebrating the losses. They're celebrating negativity. And I so totally disagree. I think anybody that thinks that, I think clearly not watched or listened to any of their shows counting these losses down. They're not celebrating. The fans of this podcast, of this series, we're not celebrating the losses. It's, the way I put it is, it's like we're cleansing the program of all of this bad mojo. We're embracing it. We're embracing the fact that, man, this has been maybe the worst 10-year stretch of almost any program. Have other programs maybe lost more, or I don't know, gone through, like SMU went through like the death penalty type stuff? Sure. But I think just the way, just the aura, the weird curse feeling of all these seasons, just the groin kick after groin kick. maybe nobody's had it worse than Nebraska football. And especially to a fan base that just keeps coming. It just keeps being optimistic, keeps getting hyped up year after year, and even week after week. I mean, we can lose a game, but you know what? By Thursday of the next week, we're sitting, hey, you know what? Maybe this is the game we get things turned around. Because that's just the kind of fan base that we are. Man, and to go through all that, whew, it's rough. So, you know, I think a lot of their stuff has been put on YouTube now for free. Like, you don't have to be a member, you don't have to be a part of Patreon. They've kind of gone through it all. Give them a listen, and you'll kind of understand. I think to be honest, how important this series is. You know, a lot of fans always kind of talk about how can we break this curse, right? Because it's clearly a curse. Okay, what we're going through with Husker football, it is clearly a curse. How do we break this? Well, you know, I think, and part of this, Matt Rule's kind of talked about this a little bit, and you know, this can maybe slide into some, I guess I kind of wasn't going to talk about, but I think could be a good topic here. Embracing who we are. Embrace what Nebraska is. And part of that embracing right now has been the fact that we have gone through some crap. We have gone through some just bad losses. We've gone through some not even bad teams, because I think if you really look at most of these teams, we don't have a whole lot of bad teams or bad players, but it's just been like this mentality, this just aura that we cannot get the stink off. Okay. We haven't been able to go into that bathtub and get the tomato juice or whatever to get that stink off. But this could be it. Owning the fact that it's been just garbage for 10 years. You know, and like with what Matt Rule's been doing, you know, a lot of people started, you know, the recruit pictures on the John Deere tractor with the bull in the deal, in the weight room, taking those alternate pictures and videos out in a cornfield. You know, there's a lot of people that, you know, you'll see on podcasts and stuff go, we're not just corn. Dude, our name is the Corn Huskers. Okay? Drive around Nebraska, there's a lot of corn. Now, is that what Lincoln is all about? No. Is that what Omaha is all about? No. A lot of the cities aren't like that. But you know what really does identify the state of Nebraska? Corn. And not just corn, but farm, agriculture, small towns. That's Nebraska. And for once, we've got a guy that's willing to embrace it and make it cool. Okay? I don't know how Matt Rule has so much swag. And what do the kids say now? Like drip? He's got so much drip that he's making like posing in front of a John Deere tractor cool. He's owning it. And sometimes that's all it takes. You got to be somebody that's confident, that owns it. And start embracing who we are. We are the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We're not just the Skurs. I know a lot of people like to call us the Skurs. I'll say that every once in a while. Let's go Skurs. But, you know, we are the Cornhuskers. We are a small populated state. And I say we because, you know, I was born in Lincoln. I've got a bunch of family obviously there. Again, if you missed the first one, I kind of talked about some of that stuff. So like, you know, Nebraska is kind of like my second home. It's my original home. And I go back there, or I try to go back there as much as I can. So it always feels like, you know, it's kind of my home. It still is. I'll always call Nebraska my home. So you know, that's why I say we, because it still feels like I'm still part of that. You know, I was born Nebraskan. Okay. So, you know, I think sometimes, and I think fans need to start doing that too now. And I'm sure there are plenty out there that do. I just think a lot of those people that do embrace aren't necessarily doing podcasts or YouTube channels or on the radio. So let's just all start embracing it. Wear your trucker hats, put the wheat stalk in your mouth, okay? Go out in the fields, have them bonfires, drink them bush lights, and enjoy being who we are. And we're small town folk. Even the big cities are small. It doesn't make it any less of a city, but let's just embrace who we are instead of trying to act like things that we're not. And I think, to be honest with you, that could be part of the reason why a lot of this non-success has been happening. Okay. Not like Tom Osborne went out of his way to like promote how podunk and country and hillbilly Nebraska can be, but he also didn't ever try to act like Nebraska was something that it wasn't. So I don't know. Again, does any of this stuff equal wins on the field? No. But there's kind of part of me, and I think all sports fan, kind of a little bit of the superstitiousness, that's a word, to them. It just kind of comes with it, right? Hell, the team's not been playing well, but finally Steve goes to the bathroom and they put on the best drive they've had all game. Guess what, Steve? You're staying in that bathroom, buddy. Okay? You're staying in that bathroom all game. Even if we go right back to not having good drives, I don't care. That one drive happened, so now you're in the bathroom until game over. We all have the lucky jersey that we wear. We all have the lucky shirt or whatever, okay? We all have that. I got to sit in this chair in this spot in this house for every game, win or lose, just because that's who we are. So, there's a part of me that does kind of believe in that. Kind of helps maybe just the aura, the karma of the team. I don't know. Maybe I'm just kind of crazy. You guys can let me know in the comments if I'm kind of crazy, but that's okay. I think sometimes we got to be a little crazy. But anyway, so again, the whole Growing Kid Chronicles thing, guys, I think it's just been, it's been actually saying fun to listen to and to watch is kind of weird to say, but it's been therapeutic. There we go. It's been very therapeutic. And I think we all need a little bit of that therapy. We need that Cornhusker therapy. All right. Speaking of that, we're going to touch on the getting tired of the talking season. And I can always tell that we're getting to that point because you'll start to watch, again, podcasts or people on the radios, people that are part of like Husker football, right? And I'm kind of talking about like, so I'll watch a lot of podcasts that will have like Nebraska media members on it, right? So like the Average Joe Sports Show, I love watching that stuff with Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbal, Bill Dolman, Gary Sharp, Mark Kranak will be on there. Brandon Vogel will jump on there. Which I guess technically now they've turned it into their radio show. They just turned it back into their full radio show. But I mainly will watch their Saturday and Sunday shows where it's more of a podcast style stuff. And and I'm just not just talking about them, but like I'll watch whenever it does come around, the Nick Bosch show, whenever he's got Bo Root on there with him. Again, the I-80 Club with Josh Peterson, that. Every once in a while, I'll try to watch Locked On with Mitch Sherman and Connor Happer, right? So they're media members and media personalities, journalists, Husker Online. I'll watch all those. So I'm kind of talking more about those. The fan ones, like, No Block, No Rock, Big Red Junkies, Corn Crazed, all that type of stuff. I'm not necessarily talking about them as much because they're fans. they're kind of just feeding into what we hear from media. Um, you'll get a lot of hype, and sometimes it's not even like them trying to hype, but it just happens, right? So you'll see a lot of hype, a lot of hope, a lot of goodwill whenever they're describing and talking about the team, how practices are going, and the outlook for the season. But usually, right before, the time in between spring and Big Ten media days, you'll get a lot of hesitation. You'll get a lot of, well, let's, hold our horses on what this team's going to be this year. We don't really know. They kind of talk on, like maybe kind of down on the team to a little bit. But then, they start riding that Kool-Aid train, start seeing practices, start hearing the good stuff from the coaches. That's what they're reporting on, so it kind of rounds up. Now we're kind of getting to the point where you can tell everybody's getting tired and just ready for the football season, and they're getting antsy because now you're starting to hear them a lot kind of downplay a lot of things, question a lot of things. Now, whenever it comes season prediction time, record prediction time, now they start coming up, or they start thinking and bringing up almost any possible little thing they can to give them a reason why, well, they're only going to be a 7-win team. Well, it wouldn't shock me if they only win 6 or 7 this year. Even though in plenty of shows before, you would have thought that they'd be predicting a 9 to 10 win season. So, I think everybody's kind of getting to that point. I'm not there. One, because I'm a sicko. I will watch and talk Husker football all the time. Like you see back here, maybe you can, maybe you can't. In the background, I've got the 96, well, I guess the 95, 96, whatever, however you want to say it. I like to say the 95 Fiesta Bowl because that's the season that I'm referring to, was the 95 season where we whooped the hell out of Florida. I don't just have this on for here. I'll turn on games all the time. I will turn on a game just to go to bed. I might watch the first 2 drives, but it will stay on all night and I will fall asleep to it. And then I'll randomly wake up and another one had start, playing on YouTube. And now it's Oklahoma State from 1999. Okay, cool. All right. Or whatever. So, sorry, excuse me. So, I'm a sicko. I live and breathe. And maybe this comes from the fact that I no longer live, obviously, in the state of Nebraska. So I don't have it all over the place, even though now with, the way social media is, it is pretty easy to access, the same radio shows that anybody in the state of Nebraska is listening to. Just instead of listening to it in the car, I'm watching it on YouTube. So, it's kind of maybe changed a little bit, but most of my life, it's not been like that. I don't have it around me 24/7. So maybe that's why I kind of developed this yearning to always be, to want more information, to want more of the talking about Nebraska football. But you can tell some people are just kind of tired of talking, tired of saying the same things over and over again. Because now that's kind of where we're at. Getting ready to go into game week. I think Thursday this week is whenever Matt Rule said that they actually will go into full-blown game prep, or full-blown game week. I think right now it's just non-camp. So I think we won't know a whole lot until Thursday. I think Thursday we'll probably get that first. Thursday or Friday we'll probably get that first depth chart release, which I'll go over that on Monday whenever I dive into the Cincinnati game. That'll definitely be a talking point. because even though I think clearly under like the Matt Rule regime, who the starters are necessarily is not that important. What's important to me is who's on that as a whole, whether they're listed as first, second, or third, because if they're on that actual depth chart that's being listed, because he doesn't list everybody, but he'll list, I think, who he lists are the players that you're going to see them on the field for some amount of playing time. So that's what I'm going to be very interested in seeing. If there's been any movements, let's give the running back room as an example. Are we going to see just Emmett, Mekhi Nelson, Isaiah Mosey, and then that's it? Or are we going to see a Vince Genatone? Are we going to see what's his name, Keith Williams or Kenneth Williams? Is Quentin Hyde going to be on there? Or is he going to be left off because he's been injured and, hasn't really kind of maybe has made his way back? How many Ors are going to be on there? Because that will kind of tell you, too, how much on the field we probably will see of them. And that's what, in any position. The biggest thing for me is going to be seeing who's at left and right tackle, right? Has Teddy Prohaska really solidified himself as one of the two best tackles, or are the two best tackles fighting for that left tackle spot, and then they finally decide one will play left and one of those guys is going to play right? So Gunner wins out, he's left, that means Elijah's right. And then Prohaska is more of your swinging backup. Maybe. That's what I'm going to be very interested in seeing. See what this O-line is going to look like going in. Kind of who, besides the three that, or at least the two that we know of for sure at wide receiver, how many wide receivers will they list? Are we going to see 6? Are we going to see 7, 8, 9? Because that'll tell you too how many wide receivers we're probably going to see in any given game. I'm going to be very interested to see, because there's been a lot of hype around, Quinn Clark. And I think him being a legacy, I think always kind of tugs on the heartstrings of all of us Husker fans. I think all want to see all of the legacy guys come in and do well, right? And really contribute, because that would be awesome, right? We love the fact that Caleb Benning is on this team, is so good, right? We like that Michael Booker III is on here. We love the fact that, Keneally's kid is on here. What's his name? Is it Connor? Anyway, we love seeing these legacy guys that, their dads played during a time that, for me, I grew up watching, those early 90s teams, where I was 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Man, like those their dads were the guys that like I idolized, because I was at that age. I'm a total different fan of the players individual now, obviously. I'm 40 years old, compared to, or even, whenever I was in college, I'm fan of the program, kind of the same. But as far as how I look at each individual player, it's a little different whenever you start growing up, because now either you're the same age or you're older, or you're way older. So, it's just a little different how you fan and look at the certain players. Like if I met Dylan, hey, that's awesome. Really cool to meet. Would still probably ask for like an autograph, because he's going to be a big deal someday. But I wouldn't be, oh my gosh, you do that whenever you're a kid. Why? Because you still look up, right? Now, it's much easier for me to see him as just he's a young man, just kind of getting through college, and then he's at that point of his life, right? Anyway, I just started rolling off, didn't I? Started just rambling. But yeah, so the media stuff. So yeah, you kind of see him started talking on that, but so it kind of, and that's kind of also well, I will say, whenever I start to hear some of that stuff, I just kind of start rolling my eyes. I'm like, do I want to keep listening to this? Because now I feel like they're just trying to find the bad, just to find the bad. And I'm always going to be a fan that, I can know whenever the possible, trying to think of the word here, the possible pitfalls of the team. I can get where the negatives might come from. But I try to look at this team no different, or not no different. I try to look at this team as its own entity. Okay, so I don't try to bring on anything that's happened in the past for this team. I know it's out there. I know it could creep up again. It could be a thing that carries over. But I'm not going to assume that it's definitely already there. It's it's camp, it's preseason, it's, the season hasn't even started yet. So why would I assume that it's definitely already there? The thought that we're going to lose close games, that they're just going to fall apart, that, and whenever like a winning play needs to happen, it's going to be a turnover, stuff like that. I know that's out there. I know it's out there, right? But it's much more fun to go into a year thinking positively, being optimistic about it. Again, like I said in my last video, why not us? Like, that's how I like going into the year. Why not us? Why not this year? Why not us? Because one of these years, it's going to happen. And I feel like the stars are kind of starting to align for this year. It's the rule year 3 thing. Dana Holgerson just does not have bad offenses. He elevates quarterbacks play. We've got a 5-star good quarterback. Our offensive line might finally be the deepest it's been. It's got a ton of experience. We've got 2 transfers that have played for some top tier programs. We might finally have gotten them, that offensive line, to finally get to the growth that we need them to be able to win in the Big Ten. We've got a really good defensive coordinator. Again, I know it's been a while since he's been a coordinator, but he's clearly been a very good coach. You look at his Buffalo Bills secondary, man, they were really good. He also helped coach it. My pro team is the Houston Texans, because I did live in Houston right after we had moved away, and it just looks awesome. I think the black jerseys look really cool. I like just how simplistic they are. I think it just looks, I just like all of it. But this one I would go back and forth on, and I almost feel like I am picking this as a loss just because I feel like there needs to be a second loss on this record. But I was listening to something earlier, and they brought up a good point. USC might come into that game a little broken. They play Oklahoma, or no. They play Notre Dame, they play Michigan, and then I think they play Oregon all before that game. So let's say they lose all 3 of those games, and they have like a close to 500 record. I think the hot seat around Lincoln Riley is going to get really hot before that game. So if that ends up being the case, then I could definitely see that being a win. If we're riding high and they're not quite riding so high, maybe that turns into a win. But I'm going to keep it a loss because they are super talented this year. They've got a lot of speed. And again, I hate to pick that one as a loss, but I just feel like I'm just going to go with the loss there. Okay. I'm going to stick to my guns. Then UCLA, we go back out there. I don't think we're going to take too kindly to losses this season. Because I think especially if that first loss doesn't come until November 1st, I think that's really going to build. And I think Dylan, as the leader of this team, will want to just like take that loss and make them better. And so I got us coming back and beating UCLA out at the Rose Bowl. But then, unfortunately, we got to go back cross country, go face a very, very stacked, good Penn State team. I also bet that'll be a night game as well, and that's going to be tough. So that was my other loss. I think everybody kind of pretty much has Penn State penciled in as a loss. Again, ask me again come November. That could change. I don't know. But as of right now, if you're just looking at who the teams are with the information we have, I think Penn State's a loss. And then we end the year, Black Friday, Iowa. Last year's loss is just. If you want to ask me what the number one groin kick game loss was, I think that one is it. Just go look up the stats of that game. It's disgusting that we lost that game. It ain't happening again. We're not losing to the Hawkeyes. I got us winning. We are 10-2, and we're going to a top tier bowl game. We're probably on the verge of maybe making the playoffs. I think if this was a 16-team year, I think we would be making the playoffs, but it's still a 12 this year. So it's going to be very close. I think it's going to come down to if we see maybe a couple upsets, if we're 10-2 at that time, by the way. I think in this situation, it would come down to maybe like who might win, lose, upsets during conference championship games. And maybe that could kind of free up like the one extra spot and maybe could get us in. But that's just, I got to say 10-2. I think it's going to be a really good year. I would love a 10-2 year. Man, I think that'd be awesome. And I think at a 10-2, with all the stuff this fan base has been through, I think we're all going to be thrilled with the 10-2 year. But I also think about what that would mean for next year and then in 2027. I think we're 10-2. I think easily we bring back a lot of players. I don't think we're going to see, juniors just go on into the NFL. I think they'll want to come back and say, no, next year we have a really good chance to go make a playoff and win a national championship, and I want to be a part of that. Because, man, if I do that at Nebraska, I will be a legend. And they would. If any player here in the next handful of years could win Nebraska national championship, they will be, dare I say, more legendary than the Osborne Husker 90 Husker players. Maybe. I think it's just, maybe. Let's see here. What else we got? Sorry, I'm looking over my notes, making sure I didn't forget anything that I wanted to talk about. All right. Nope, I think we pretty much covered everything. Before we go, I want to try something out. Let's see here. I'm going to share screen of Rooney. Sorry, that's from a different podcast that I watch. Let's see here. Can anybody, there we go, see my screen? Yes, it works. Okay. All right, guys. A lot of times people try to think of what can we do to kind of change up the tunnel walk. Now, I'm not saying that this is what we should walk, but what I am saying is this. I'm going to play this song right here. So you can see it's by a guy named Demon Jones featuring Chris Calico and Byrne County. And this song is called Cornfield on Fire. Now, this song, I'm telling you right now, okay? I think if you played this kind of like right before the tunnel walk would start and then you start playing serious, or if you played this during the light show, during the drone show that went into the fourth quarter, if they came up with something else like during a halftime or something, whatever the case may be. Okay. This song is so good. It just kind of gets you pumped, but I don't know how to explain this. Once you hear it, I think you'll kind of know what I'm saying. It's not overly hip hop to where the old heads that are there, the gray hairs that are in the stadium, or even the little kids, the little ones, because Nebraska's fan base, or the live attendance fan base, it's so all over the place that it's hard to kind of play certain music that won't, maybe offend certain segments of that fan base that is there and not know how to act or react to that. So this song is from a lane of music called country rap. Okay. Uh, I like to call it a lane of music because if you listen to country rap, it's a very wide range of like styles and sounds and everything. Um, so it's just kind of got a good beat. There's not a bunch of cuss words. You don't have to worry about the N word being thrown around, um, or anything kind of like that. The song's not talking about, women and objectifying women or anything like that. This song is literally just about like going out to a field party, basically. Okay. Um, but the fact that it does say cornfield on fire, these guys are from, well, not Chris Calico. Chris Calico's from Kansas City, Missouri, but Demon, and I'm pretty sure Byrne County as well. They're from Georgia. They're big Bulldog fans. So it's not like they're Nebraska people or rooting for Cornhuskers. They're just talking about literally going out and partying in a field. And, I'm just going to play this first little part because, again, I wouldn't play the whole song in the stadium, but tell me this part would not get the crowd kind of going. All right. Wait. Oh, there we go. Okay. Ding.
I feel a west wind blowing in. I got a bonfire lit up in the field, and all my friends are gathered round. We came back again for another weekend, but this time we brought a bunch of people.
Watch it.
A little gas on the fire, and the sparks start to fly while the windmill's spinning. Watch out! Crank the boom sprayer high, cause the field's bone dry. Ain't raining in a minute.
Right? I mean, this is kind of just a nice little gentle, fun beat. Kind of get you a little hype.
But if you're coming on the real, then you better know the deal. Might set a cornfield on fire. Cornfield on fire.
Come on now. Sit in the stadium with your bush like cornfield on fire.
Cornfield on fire.
All right. Stop sharing that. All right. It's a little fun thing. If you guys really like that little bit of the song, go find Demon Jones on YouTube. It's DEMUN and then Jones, JONES. Song's Cornfield on Fire. I don't know. I think it'd be really cool. Use that song. If you guys like that song, let's tag Matt Rule. Let's tag Huskers. I don't know who else would be involved in getting that thing going, but yeah, I just think it'd be cool, man. I think it'd be a really good song to just kind of, I don't know, get the crowd going, get the juices flowing. Anyway, like I said, my kind of upcoming schedule streaming on Monday, I will do a deep dive into the Cincinnati Bearcats and the game. We should have a depth chart released hopefully by then. I would love to go over that as well during that stream. And, as of right now, it's timing. Try to think, I'll put up a scheduled stream so everybody will see it on here, but I'm going to think somewhere around 4:35, 5:30, somewhere in there, and go over that. that Monday night or that Thursday night, I'll not be doing a reaction right after. There's no way I can do a reaction that because the game starts at 8, which means kickoff's probably gonna be like 8:15. Game won't get over until almost midnight, depending on how the game goes. It's gonna be roughly midnight, and then I got to be up at 3:30, 4 o'clock the next morning to go back to work. Yeah, I try to take that Friday off, and then realize it's the end of our fiscal year, so I've got inventory that day that has to be done. So therefore, I got to be there. So that's gonna be a rough one. But hey, I ain't missing the Husker football game, but I won't be able to do reaction right after. So we'll see how tired I am come Friday whenever I get home from work. But more than likely, I will do that reaction probably on Monday because that'll be Labor Day. I will have the day off. I can probably do it like mid-afternoon maybe. So look out for that. Yeah, so everybody, thank you for watching. Again, please subscribe, give me a like, leave some comments. Would really like it if you shared, tell your friends, and go Big Red.